Everybody, welcome to the HSA podcast. You're back at it again. We appreciate you coming. Comments, we want to hear them. If you disagree with us, we want to hear it in the comments. We want to say it. But today I have with me, and I'm going to introduce them because I know it's funny because I get these podcast guests and I get all excited and they're big people and they're like, well, I'm really not that big. I'm like, no, you are big. I want to share this, and I'm going to share a little bit of our history together. This is Brandon Lafferman. He built a high school program, university. It was a mediocre program. I mean, I'm not throwing stones at coaches, but you came in there and you had a vision, and they just competed in a state championship last year. And I refuse to believe that you didn't have a hand in somewhat of the stepping stones of that. And so you were kind of the guy that launched him in there. He has been a high school coach. He had a historic run. You are the all-time winningest coach at university, I believe. Yep. You run prime time. You also coach your son, but also fill in the gaps in where I missed. Where were you born, and where did you come from? And tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And that intro. I grew up in Los Angeles. And then moved to Indiana to go to Butler.
It's funny. So that explains the Showtime.
Yes.
With the LA Times. Okay. Now it makes sense. I just put that together.
All the time stuff for sure. But yeah, so I was a basketball fanatic my whole life and obsessed with it. And when I moved to Indiana, I learned how important it was in the high school space, which in LA at the time when I was growing up, you didn't get thousands of people coming to games. Gyms didn't sit a lot of people. And so when I first came here, I actually went to a Chatard-Roncalli game. A random game at Chatard's gym, and no one sat down the whole game. And so I was like, this is incredible. And that kind of launched my desire to really get into teaching and coaching and education. And so in terms of kind of jumping all the way to university, when I got that job and took over, it was a fairly new school, new program, 1A at the time, obviously, when we ran into each other. And it was a big undertaking to kind of change the culture there and really turn it into where the importance of sports and basketball and what it could really do for the whole school community, which I had great leadership at that school on the administrative side that really bought into that and was really supportive of that growth. And that was honestly, I had to step away a couple years, but it was years ago, but it was an awesome experience growing university basketball.
And people don't understand, though, the administration support, how important it is. I've been under some bad administrations, and I've been under some good administrations. And there's reasons why in the NBA you have the Celtics and the Lakers, and you have those powerhouses that are always in contention. And that's almost the same as having a good administration of hey, we're willing to spend money, we're willing to take time and let you grow and be you. And I've also been with some administrations that are you got to win now. And I'm like, eh. So now you stepped away from university. And it's interesting. I'm going to show you this real quick. I'm going to show my cards. It's funny when people look back at history and it's like, man, you knew you were going to beat university and do all this. That was a tough game. You guys ran so many good sets. And it came down to a shot. Mm-hmm. It came down to one shot. And that shot could have gone 50-50. But I remember my wife talking, and she goes, I remember the last 12 seconds, I almost threw up. She was like, I couldn't watch, I almost cried. Yep. And but people come back you knew you were going to beat them. I didn't have a clue. That was a good team. They were well coached. They executed, and all the things. And I want to give you your props while I can, because it wasn't like we walked in there thinking it was going to be a cakewalk. I remember all of us being how are we going to do this? This is tough. Yep. But you did run a very good program.
Thank you.
So you stepped away from university. And then now you've done a lot of AAU stuff, and you're developing, and you're still in the basketball realm. But what are you doing exactly?
Well, kind of when university, when I started the coaching there, I had already created primetime basketball. And so that, I founded that program. I was teaching at the time, and I really, as much as I loved teaching, I wanted to get out of it. It was entrepreneurial thoughts. I wanted to kind of run my own basketball club. And so that's kind of how Primetime was born. And I ran that for a really long time. Fast forward to kind of where we're at now. I had taken a job with the Pacers Athletic Center when it was built, got involved in all this Cardin Associates facilities and programming, and my role was to kind of create programming through all their facilities, and I'd been doing that for a really long time, and it was an awesome experience, and I still work with those guys heavily. about 6 months ago, I started thinking, you know what, I'm kind of ready to go back out on my own again. And like the corporate space of youth sports and kind of what it's become, there's some pros to it, there's some cons to it. But at the end of the day, I had put a lot of people in really good spots within this business that we were running, and I felt like they could kind of fly without me. And so I decided to step away and move into this new world that I'm in now, which is really, you know, I guess I consider myself a consultant of youth sports. And so I'm still helping with Cardin Associates. I oversee a lot of their things still and selling for them and marketing for them and working with their people. But I also created CoachLaugh.com, which is like my own basically personal brand, and to work with parents, players, coaches, and businesses, all regarding and around youth basketball and eventually probably more sports. But basketball is obviously my bread and butter, so we're starting there. And really it's to educate people who need it. And what I learned in the last couple years is that people like you and I, we've been in it forever. We're in it every day. We know what we know.
Yeah.
But there's this new crop of kids and parents, right? Every year, new people getting into this fold of what to do and where to go and who to trust. And for me, I just saw so many people making poor choices. And I'm so connected to everyone in basketball that I felt like I could be a steward to a lot of people and helping them get to the right spot. And so I am doing some training with players who are working with me. I'm doing a lot of mental and emotional kind of coaching with them. We're watching film. We're just doing a little bit more than the bouncing the balls and around the cone stuff. And then from the parent side, it's crazy, but the amount, I'm sure you get it too, the amount of calls over the last 20 years that I get from parents asking for advice. And I finally was like, you know what? Not only is there a business here, but there's an opportunity for me to do good for a lot of people that are looking for help.
And people don't, I think a lot of people don't understand this is when you're not just doing it to make money. You find there's an opportunity, but the more money you make, the more people you're able to help. Yep. And so a lot of people think, oh, they just did it to make money. No, like the more you organize yourself and you make the system, and I see a lot too. And it's not as, I'm more private with who I'm willing to help, but it sounds like to me like you're more open to helping people, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with either that. But for you, talk about some of the downfalls that you saw. Like let's start with player development. Like what are the bad player developments doing? And then what are the bad coaches doing? And then I'm gonna hate to say it, I'm gonna probably lose. I'm gonna get tons of what are the bad parents doing?
Sure.
Let's talk about the bad, and then we're gonna shift to the good. But what are the bad?
Yeah, you know, I think the bad skill development, you know, is just like the first thing I see. So many videos online where you got this line of kids, right, standing in a line, right, and somebody's paying $25, $50, $100 an hour to stand in a line and do the same 80 dribble moves over and over and over again, right? And I think we all hear about it, you know, people talk about it, but there's very few people in skill development that are doing anything different. They keep going back to that. And I think part of it is because they get the money, and then that's an easy thing to do. Throw some cones out there, do some dribble work, you know, and the reality is, you know, 90% of the time these kids are on the court, if not more, the ball is not in their hands. And this is by far the biggest thing that I've been trying to focus on with parents and kids, is that your kid does not have the ball very much. What are they doing without it? And that's what we're going to focus on training. And so whether it's me physically doing the work on the court or me passing them along to the right people training, that's what I'm looking for. Are what coaches are doing skill development work where the player does not just have the ball, bounce it downhill, lay it up, and run back and get in line. There's just too much of that still happening. And then along with that, a lot of those guys are people that don't have very good credentials in terms of actually coaching or proving that they've trained anybody who's gone on to be any good. And I think that we'll get some of these trainers who push, oh, I got this guy and he went D1. Okay, well, did you really have him? Is he yours? You know, that's the worst thing. I cannot stand hearing that. Nobody's yours. Yeah. And if you trained them for a year of their entire development, what did you really do, right? And so, like, those are the types of things that I'm trying to help parents with, because the parents that come in and don't know anything, they can get blindsided really quickly by, look, this guy's playing at Miami and this person trained him or their company trained him, and it's like, well, I don't know about that. What else were they really doing? So that's kind of the skill development piece that I tend to dislike and try to counter a little bit with giving good advice to people. The coaching piece, as much as success as I had at university, I really like to say that I think the youth coaching that I've done throughout my career is where I've served the basketball community best. And so whether that was with Primetime, I mean, for years, that's what I coached, Grand Park Premier teams, and now I'm actually coaching a Carmel Pups team with my son. But, the type of coaching in 2nd to 6th grade, it's so important for kids to, A, learn the game, B, develop a passion and like a true desire to want to continue playing it, and then 3 is like this whole, I'd say, grouping of stuff that's all together, but it's just about like the experience of being a basketball player. And I think that, I go back even to my roots as a kid. I think it's way different today than it was when we were kids. But the youth coaching across the country, I don't think is very good. And I think it's too focused on winning, too many set plays, not enough skill development that applies to what you should be running with a youth team. And so, like, I can only coach so many kids. Right now, I can't coach 100 kids, teams and whatever. You get what I'm saying. And And so, like, a lot of what I'm doing, if I can't coach you, who's out there in the market that I can connect with that's doing a really good job? And I'm constantly looking for that. I think there's a lot of there's too much business right now related to getting their money, throwing them on a team, giving them a jersey that looks cool, and saying we're going to play in all these games. And that gets parents excited, and they hear all the wrong words, exposure, and we're playing against nationally ranked teams, and we're going to, circuits, right, exactly. And so all of this stuff is complete just BS, when what they could be doing is being in a gym with 9 other guys and the right coach a couple days a week, and just really learning how to play the game and learning basketball culture and all this stuff that really will, again, that will make, I talk about our era, like the Michael Jordan era. Like, that's what I remember. That's what I wanted to be. And I actually think that some dads and coaches and moms that are pushing it the right way on their kids today and putting them in the right environment, they're coming out thinking that way and feeling that way. And I think others, it's just games. And at the end of the day, like, winning and losing kind of stops mattering. They're only worried about their stats or their highlight reels. And that, in the team space and the coaching the game space, those are the things that I'm trying to really overcome and help people get away from.
It's interesting because you're saying all this and you're sparking my ADHD, which I absolutely love. I have a PW2 team that I run, and there was a kid, he got benched because he didn't shoot a wide open shot. And I'm like, dude, we have the best shooters in the state right now. Like, all my kids, you have to make 500, or you have to take 500 shots a week to stay on my team.
Okay.
If you don't take the 500 shots on average, you're, get out of here.
Yep.
And so I do that because I want my teams to be comfortable shooting.
Yep.
So I pull the kid off, and he's like, what did I do wrong? He expected me to say something on defense, hustle. I'm like, oh, you didn't shoot that wide open 3. You're shooting that next time. And so I look at him, I'm like, hey, bud, you ready to go shoot? He goes, yeah. He goes in there, misses, he passes up a shot again, wide open. Back out. He goes, I didn't shoot again. I'm like, nope, didn't shoot. I'm not mad. I'm not screaming. I'm like, why didn't you shoot? I'm like, you're not shooting, and I need you to shoot. And so he comes in, and I didn't know this. He's played for me for 2 seasons. He came in yesterday. He's playing on his school team, and he goes, I made my first ever 3-pointer in a game. I'm like, you've never made a 3 before? But you shot him for me. He goes, yeah, but I made it because you keep screaming at me to shoot it. And I'm like, so as a parent, oh, well, we didn't win the game, but that kid went 0 for 3 on the 3-point line. But was it a good shot? Like, I'm more interested in educating the kid on the good shot.
Yeah.
So talk about a parent and what their mindset shouldn't be. Like, if I'm a parent, I have 4 kids, I have an 8-year-old, talk to me about what I should be doing with him.
Yeah. I think first thing is, I think you gotta find adults in this space who have been through it. So you got those. Like, I think parents can actually learn from other parents that have gone through the process. There are a lot of parents that are on Kid 1 that are listening to all this noise, and it's like, maybe that's not the right person to listen to. Because the reality is, parents talk to other parents before they get to us. That's what I've kind of learned, right? There's the neighbor that's got a kid playing. There's their buddy from college, their kids are playing, and they see what those parents are doing with their kids on Facebook and Instagram, and that's who they reach out to first, which is natural. They're going to go to people that they trust. I think you got to find, if you're a parent and you're going to try to talk to other parents, talk to ones that have been through the process. Find a parent that's had a player that's playing in high school, and what was their experience like going from the younger ages all the way through. Or even better, find a mom or a dad that's got kids that are out of the house that have been through the process, and learn from them, the good and the bad. I think step 2 is obviously finding people like us that have coached at a high school, junior high, college level, all of the above, even better, that have been with AAU programs that maybe did it right and did it wrong, because now we can actually give really quality advice on what works and what doesn't. There's just so much noise in the space, and I actually feel bad. Like, what an advantage I have as a parent, because my kid, I'm not saying that he's gonna be really good. That's up to him.
Yeah.
But I at least know what to do and not to do. If he wants to be a basketball player, I feel pretty confident I can put him in the right position to achieve that. If physically he can get there, mentally he can get there, all those things. That's it. That's on him. But I know what not to do, right? And I think that my advice to parents is just call someone like you or me right away. Look for, and if another parent, they talk to them, ask them who the best coach they've ever had was, and get that person's number and call them and ask them.
Absolutely. And so it's interesting, because the big thing I'm hearing you say is be vulnerable. As a parent, be vulnerable. Be open. You don't know everything. I've been in this game for 20 years. I've been in player development for 20 years. I don't know everything.
Right.
Like I would love to come sit down and watch what you do, and I'm going to take 30 notes.
Yep.
And you're like, but you took 30 notes. You've been doing this. I'm like, yeah. Like, I don't know everything.
Sure.
And it's really funny because you and I are going through the meat grinder right now. Before we were a coach, like, this is what I would do. Now we're like, no, I say like this. That's my product. Yeah. That's my son. Yeah. Like, and you can tell me I'm wrong on this. People look at me like I'm crazy because on my kids' games, I don't say anything. I just sit there and I just watch and I enjoy. I'll clap and I'm back to here.
Yep.
And to a point, my wife she said something like, hey, your son needs like a little thumbs up, or your son needs a little bit of encouragement, just a little, like, I love you and I'm here for you. And I was like, okay, I'm probably too cold. But the coaches that know better, I always find that they're just very this.
Yep. And
I don't know if this is true with you, but I feel that the high level coaches encourage their sons or daughters not to play. Like, don't play. And I've done the same with my kids. Like, if you want to play, you have to fall in love with the game. It can't be me loving it for you.
Yep.
How did that work with your son, and where are you with that process? And
yeah, I think this is probably the thing that, I'm not an expert on, because I'm going through it for the first time, right? And so I hope that I'm doing things right. I think when you think about your own kid and going through something that you love, it is tricky, right? And what, I got to go back to my own roots, right? Like, my dad, he was pushing me into baseball. And that was really the sport that I was an all-star every year, and it was easy for me. And I was taking pitching lessons, and I was going to be a pitcher and all this stuff. But I fell in love with Michael Jordan, the LA Lakers, in that era of watching it. And I just, I went outside and played basketball every day, alone or with people in the neighborhood, at school. It never stopped. I had to kind of push my dad into accepting the fact that I wanted to hoop. So, like, that was my upbringing, and now my kid grows up in a household where you're getting dragged to the gym at 18 months old because dad's a high school coach. And so, it's almost like, I always say, man, I wish I could have been my kid, right? If I had his experience, what would I have turned into?
Now, let me ask you this real quick. Are you gonna be heartbroken when he chooses baseball?
No, I mean, I at the end of the day, like, I love sports, right? Yeah. And I love competition, and I love sports culture. So it doesn't really matter. To be honest, I probably watch more football on TV than anything. So it doesn't really matter. I just want him to fall in love with something, that he can be passionate about. But I have 3 kids right now. My youngest is 6. He's just getting started, and honestly, I don't know if he'll be even into hoops. My daughter been playing for a couple of years. I gave her to somebody that I really know. They know what they're doing in coaching. They've coached girls. They've got daughters, and I basically have said, you can work with her until she wants me to, right? Yeah. And so that's been a really good relationship, and she's excelling and kind of starting to fall in love with it a little bit, which is cool. My oldest is the most like us. He's a gym rat. And I think that some of it, is probably him. He just got it a little bit. And some of it is osmosis. He was the only of my 3 kids that was kind of part of that university experience. He remembers the players. He remembers games. He wasn't old enough for our game. He wasn't. He was born. He was probably like 3 years old. So
yeah.
But you know, he was in the university gym and at every game I coached at such a young age, and it was obvious with him. My wife would come to the games, and my 2-year-old would intently watch the whole game. And I knew it was different with him than the rest, because the other ones, as they were coming in, they wouldn't watch anything. They wanted an iPad or a phone.
They weren't playing to the bleachers.
Yeah, they were running around. But my oldest has always been into it, and I always tell people he's not real big. I don't know what kind of player he'll end up being, but his IQ is off the charts, and he'll probably be a coach, is my guess.
Yeah.
He loves the game. So, but in terms of like going back to, you know, what have we been doing? You know, I think your point is very accurate. A lot of ex-pros who have kids, they seem to sit in the stands and be quiet. They like really know. A lot of coaches I know, same thing. My situation's been a little back and forth because I've coached him a lot, but I've also had him play for someone who I really trust up at the Pack for a long time, and so I got a little bit of both. And when my friend was coaching him, their team was really good. I never questioned anything they were doing, and I could sit there and just cheer and be a dad, which, to be honest, I loved. I mean, I love that. I also like coaching him. Our relationship has gone up and down with it. There's been some games where I can tell he comes over and looks at me and he sees dad. And I have to remind him, you know, those that played for me and know me, I'm fiery, I'm loud, I yell a lot, you know, I'm passionate, and I sweat and walk, you know, that's the type of coach I am. And so, you know, I've told him, like, you're going to get yelled at the same way everybody else is, and you have to try really hard to separate dad from coach. That's hard for a 10-year-old. I don't care, you know, you could be the greatest player ever. That's tough. And so we go through that, and I would never, it's not always perfect. But I'm trying to teach him to be a leader. He's a point guard. He's a very pass-first oriented player. And those are the things that I'm really trying to instill in him. I don't care if you score. I don't care if you go 0 for 5. I want you to help your team win. And I think like that's kind of the biggest thing that I've been trying to get through to him, is if you're going to be small and you're going to play point guard and you're going to run a team, you got to do all those things. And so, you know, and I think every player is a little bit different, but I think the dad-son thing, you tend to notice, and I'm sure you've seen this, the amount of guys that we know who coach, who have kids, a lot of them end up playing point guard. A lot of them are team leaders. A lot of them are captains. And I think it's because they come from, you know, a coaching household.
It's funny though, and just to put this in another gear, sometimes you see the parent coach and that kid shouldn't be the center.
Sure.
Or that kid shouldn't be the captain.
Right.
That kid shouldn't be the point guard. And also, again, when you have someone like us, and I think that if your son was 6'5" and dunking on everybody, but hey, you're not the point guard anymore.
Right.
You're over here now with this guy. And I also find the fact that, and I really want people to understand this. I want to take it home, is that you and I probably are the people that should be coaching our kids. But the fact that we value being dads so much, and we value our parenthood more than we value being a coach, is like, let somebody else coach them. Let somebody else be the bad guy. And I tell a lot of parents that here when they sit down and say, well, I did this, why should you coach my son? And I'm like, well, because the conflict now gets to be trainer-player instead of father-son.
For sure.
And I would rather have somebody else yell at my kid, and I get to be the good guy, sit in the car like, coach is a real jerk. Yeah, he yelled at me. Like, oh yeah, coach, well, that's gonna happen, you know. But like, now compared to like, you get in the car with your son, you're like, hey dad, you were the jerk. And you're like, was I doing it? Was I not? Tell me more about CoachLaff.com. So it's CoachLaff.com. I want you to tell us, because we're both in a similar lane. And I'm only helping people that are in my circle. If you're not in my circle, I'm not going to help you.
Sure.
It's just me. I'm guarded. I'm going to admit who I am. I'm guarded, and this is my gatekeeping. But it sounds to me like you're more open to having the gate open. And so I think that, what about it? Like, tell me a little bit about
Sure.
what we could do to get involved with that.
You know, I think my entrepreneurial spirit, and we're obviously connected in that space, you know, is always think big, right? And you know, when I started Primetime, a lot of that was based around dad coaching, which is funny that these are connected. And so the guy that helped me start Primetime basketball side was also my assistant at university when we played U, and he and I always would struggle with, we created this business around non-dad coaches, but all these people want us to coach their kids. Are we not going to then provide that same high-level coaching to our own kids? So, you know, that was kind of a twist that we always had to kind of fight through. But Primetime, when I built it, the goal was for it to, you know, hit the masses, get as many kids training and playing the right way. And that, you know, that grew, and then I kind of sold it off, and it, you know, became, again, a little bit more corporate, but it's still a phenomenal program. As I move into this new world, I'm still thinking big. How can I impact the game of basketball players, basketball coaches, and basketball parents in a big way, but I can't do it all myself. And so, you know, having relationships with people like you, having relationships with Evan Sutner and Braden and guys that work up at the Pack that I know are really good at what they do. You know, and that's kind of one of, like, if you look at my notes as I was getting going, a lot of this is, who are the people in basketball in the state of Indiana that I want to be able to say, hey, you live over on the southeast side, go see Paul, right?
Yeah.
Like because I don't need to be, I'm not an egomaniac. It doesn't have to be about me. I just want to get the bad basketball out. And I know that's a really tough thing to do. It's probably never going to go away. But anything that I can do to help people avoid that stuff, that's really what I'm after. As far as, like, you know, the client base, you know, right now I'm consulting for 3 different players and a school, actually. And so some of what I'm doing is maybe not necessarily to impact, you know, Johnny, but it might be to help his entire school program figure out how to better serve their school community with youth sports.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think that's really the ultimate goal, and I don't know where this is going to go. It's really new, and I kind of had been thinking about it for 2 years, and I finally just said, I'm jumping off the cliff, and I'm going to give it a shot, and I think it will lead to whatever the next big thing is for me. But for me, I'll always stay in coaching. You know, I just happen to be working with Carmel because that's where I live, and I've gotten to know both the girls and boys coaches there, and I like what they do, and obviously Carmel's a great program. And so, you know, I said, hey, I've got experience in the youth side, let me hop in and help. And so I've been getting involved in that. I've been consulting for a couple different basketball businesses as well, and just trying to provide, you know, with all the experience I have, to just try to make it better.
It's you said a lot of things.
Yeah, sorry.
No. It's good. It's good because you just never know where things are. And this is, I don't know if you said this off camera when we were talking, but the mental health. And talk to me about where we are. My wife said something to me yesterday, and it broke my heart. Do you know what they're calling this generation of kids, our generation? The anxiety generation. And I'm gonna get on my soapbox.
Yeah.
I'm gonna warn you. I'm on my soapbox. I don't think it's the kids putting themselves with anxiety. I don't think they're like, oh, I want anxiety. I think it's the parents giving our kids anxiety. And that's one thing where these are the kids I love working with. I sounds like I've never met your son, but I think that I would love to work with your son because he's a gym rat. He wants to be here. Those are the kids I love.
Yep.
The kid that I dread. And I tell everyone that comes in, the kid that I dread is the kid that doesn't want to be here.
Right.
The kids are like, oh, my parents are making me play. And they walk in, I'm like, all right, let's get on the baseline. Let's get started. Let's get warmed up. Let's get through our warm up. And, you know, I just feel like I don't want the adversarial relationship. But the ones I love are the gym rat people. But if you look at the anxiety generation, it's those kids that are forced. And, well, my dad didn't. My dad got cut as a freshman, so now I need to make freshman team. I don't even like basketball.
Right.
But talk to me about the mental health and what you're seeing and some wins and some losses that you have in that field.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think, so my wife's a social worker.
Okay.
At an elementary school. And so, you know, she deals in that space with younger kids all the time. And I totally agree with you about the anxiety and the parent-driven thing. And I think there's a lot of things that you could point to. But I think in sports, you know, I had mentioned like the Michael Jordan generation. I think that we grew up, this, you know, like adults today who are having kids that are into basketball, we grew up all wanting to be like Mike. And now a lot of us are pushing that on our own children. They didn't see Gatorade commercials with Michael Jordan. They didn't watch him win 6 titles. They didn't get behind him in the same way that like we did. I mean, he was an idol to me, right? And so I went outside and tried to be him. And I even remember like during COVID when there was nothing to do, my son and I watched all these highlights of Michael Jordan and Kobe and all these guys. But like, you know, my point is I think we are pushing a lot on them and a lot of pressure. And I've coached a lot of kids, and I'm sure you have, that you can see it. They are so concerned about being perfect or about pleasing somebody in the stands rather than just walking out there and having fun. And you know, people always said like, I got a bad back as I get older, right? We got problems. I don't get to hoop as much as I would like to. But that was, you know, for me, going out on the court and playing was like therapeutic. If it's not therapeutic for these kids, why are they doing it? It makes no sense. And so some of the stuff that I've been doing on the Coach Laugh side is, hey, like, we're going to meet for an hour and 15 minutes, but only 45 of it we're going to actually work on your game. We're going to get shots up. We're going to do all kinds of stuff to get you better. The other 30 minutes, we're just going to sit down and talk. And I think that, you know, that comes from my coaching at university roots. Program culture was a huge thing for me. How upperclassmen treated lowerclassmen was a huge thing. How coaches and parents were able to communicate was a big thing. I know a lot of coaches, like, they don't want to talk to parents, right? Well, you know, that's fine. But at the same time, like, they're the parent, that's their kid you're working with. And so it probably should have a relationship with them. Just make sure it's the right kind, you know? And so I spend a lot of time with the kids that I'm working with, trying to get into their heads, making them think about their why. That's a big one. Why are you here? Like, you wrote down on a goal, I want to make the high school team in 5 years. Why? Right? And so that makes them all, you know, well, then think about it. Maybe that's my dad's goal, not my own goal. And so spending a lot of time with that, and it's exactly to your point, to try to help these kids. If it's not fun and they're not enjoying the process, it can be hard, right?
Oh, yeah.
We know that it's going to be hard to work to get there, but it should still be an enjoyable process. Otherwise, go find what you love, because I think we both know if you're not passionate about something, you're not going to be good at it.
There was a young lady, and I had this whole conversation with the parents. I'm notorious. I tell people I don't lie. You may not like what I say, but at least you know I didn't lie. Like, it's my version of the truth. Jordan and Charles Barkley, I don't know if you remember that. He's Charles Barkley doesn't tell the truth. He tells his version. I'm going to tell you my version of the truth. And so you may not like it, but there was this girl that came in, and she was working, but she wasn't getting better. And I keep a lot of stats. I keep a lot of two-ball. I warm up with two-ball dribbling, but I also keep stats on it so I can see the improvements. So that way, I always tell people, I want your feelings gone. I don't care about your feelings. I want stats. I don't feel like a good shooter. Well, let's look at the stats. Oh, they say you are a good shooter. Your feelings are lying to you. So her numbers weren't getting better. So I pulled her aside and I pulled her parents. I'm like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I think you're wasting my time. I think you're wasting her time. I think you're wasting your time. I think you're wasting your money. I would much rather have your daughter go and pursue art or do something she's very passionate about and dominate at that, rather than try to be a basketball player. And I lost myself a client, and I was like, they're never coming back. And I'm a new business owner, so like every client is like, I need this to work. And so 2 weeks later, she comes back, and I'm like, what is this? Oh my gosh, like, and she focused, she locked in, and she got better and better and better. And she quit basketball, and she ended up playing flag football, but she loved it. And I'm like, but I want you to take that same energy and what you're doing and apply it to what you love.
Yep.
Stop applying this time and energy to something that you despise.
Yep.
It's not fair to you. It's not fair to your parents. And I think the dad was a little heartbroken, but but I think our fatherhood and our parenthood thrives over our child's success.
Sure.
So I'd rather have my son look back at me and say, you know, I was a good basketball player because I loved it, not because my dad said it.
Right.
So
talk
about the relationship with your son and how do you manage that? So we talked about your son's aspect.
Yeah.
And it's also hard for you as a coach, because I coach and I'm fiery and I'm a coach.
Yep.
And I say things that I walk back like, shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
But how do you separate dad and coach? Because it's not just hard for your son, it's also hard for you.
Yeah.
Like, I know we're adults, but it is hard.
It's tough. Listen, there's no doubt about it. I started coaching him when he was in kindergarten, and I coached a first grade primetime team, and he played on that team. And so in the beginning, you were saying before about where your kid is, right? So, Dustin Smith's a good friend of mine, and he coached Braden his whole life. Well, Braden was, it was easy for him to say, Braden was the point guard on that team. He was generally the best player on the team. He was making everyone better. Everyone wanted to play on that team. So, I don't think Dustin ever had to deal with a lot of worry that someone was going to be mad he was playing him, right? And so those things always run through your head. Even when your kid is really good, when they have a bad day, I hate that because it does mess me up some days. He had a bad shooting day the other day. He couldn't make an open three, and he's a good shooter, and he was all upset because it didn't help his team, and I'm sitting over there thinking the same, but I'm also, you get these thoughts in your brain whether you want to or not. You can't help it because you're a dad. What's the other dad thinking whose kid didn't play as many minutes? Or are they going to think their kid should start now because your kid had a bad day? So those things definitely make coaching tough, I think, with your kids. But I generally revert back to, I'm an expert in this space. So I know the parents whose kids I'm coaching trust me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they wouldn't be with me. And I make it very clear to them, I'm going to coach my kid and your kid the same way, and you're going to see it. And so, I think, but there's definitely a difference in coaching a bunch of kids when your own child is not there.
Oh, yeah.
And I think my son and I are doing it well. There was a gap, second, third grade, where I kind of realized it wasn't going well for about a 4-game stretch. And I told my wife, I said, I'm taking 6 months off from coaching him. And luckily, I know a lot of good coaches. So I was able to say, here you go. I want you to coach Crew for a while. And here are the things that, I see not working with me and him that I'm hoping will be resolved by passing him on to you.
I would push back and I would say you're wrong on this. Okay. I don't think it's luck. You said luckily, but I disagree with that word. I think it's because you're intuitive enough to pay attention and you're smart enough to start picking up numbers.
Sure.
And so I don't think that's luck. I think that's very by design.
Yep.
So give yourself some credit on
Thank
that.
you.
You are the expert.
The other thing that I think is important is having a good assistant coach. And so, I think I've talked to millions of dads. And this is, I love this topic because as I was getting towards the end of my time at university and I knew I was going to resign in the next couple of years just because my family was growing and work was getting crazy. But I coached against a lot of guys, Scott Flatt at Covenant Christian, is just the first one that comes to mind, but there were a bunch who coached their kids. And I asked in those little pregame huddles when everyone's warming up and you're talking to the other team's coach, I would always ask, that was my first question, tell me about coaching your kid in high school. What's it like? Give me some advice. That was just me kind of preparing I had a feeling my son was going to want to play basketball. But I'm sorry, I kind of lost my train of where I was going with this. But at the end of the day, I would say this: with my son and me right now, I love doing it, and I feel like it's a bonding experience for us. And until it reaches a point where he doesn't like it, or I really can tell, it's something that I want to do. And now I've remembered, assistant coach is what I'd said. So I have a great assistant, and when I yell too much at my own kid, he can sense it.
Yeah.
And if it's his turn to go to the bench, he'll get right up and go sit right down, and they'll have a quick conversation. And I do think that's really important. And over the years, when I think about watching some other parent-son dynamics or daughter, they've generally had an assistant coach that they could trust.
Yeah.
And so even with this pups team that I'm coaching right now, my assistant and my son, they have a phenomenal relationship. They even text sometimes about random things that have nothing to do about basketball. But that just tells me my son trusts him. And you know what? If I'm too hard on him for a second and, they can have a quick conversation about it and it helps him get back out on the floor, great.
Yeah.
So overall, I'd say it's right now, it's 95% is great. The 5% that's not is just something that I think, we're going to continue to kind of work through, and it'll probably always be there a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's nothing. I think it's funny because people look at coaches like we're perfect. We do mess up.
Oh, for sure.
We messed up.
Yep.
We were in a game, and this is not my son, but this is having people in your corner that are willing to be honest with you.
Yep.
I tell people all the time, I don't want a yes man. I can get yes men if I want. I don't want yes men. I want someone that's going to stand up in a meeting and say, you're wrong. This is what I think. Yeah. Appropriately.
Yep.
And so with the coaches I surround myself with, there was this one time, we're up by 30. We're running man. We're doing all the right stuff. We're not just blowing a team out to blow it out. Our kid grabs a steal and goes up on the wrong basket and shoots on the other team. and I yelled at him, and I middle named him and last named him and everything, and I yelled at him, and then I look over, and he's got tears flowing down his eyes, and this is a 10-year-old, and so I gave him a quick sub, I pulled him out, got down on my knee, I'm like, hey, you know what? I messed up. I put you on the spotlight. Yes, I should have said something, but I shouldn't have kept the spotlight on you that much. You know you messed up. You didn't make the shot, and then he started crying. He goes, I'm like, do you forgive me? He goes, yeah. I'm like, okay, what do you want now? He goes, I want to go back in the game. I'm like, fair point. So I put him back in the game, but like the coach had to pull me aside and give me like you were the turd in this conversation.
Yeah.
But you also have to be humble as a coach to be like, I was the turd.
Yep.
And I accept this. I need to own my black eye.
Yeah, that just sparked a story of my own. I'll tell you, it's the same kind of situation, and this just happened probably 2 months ago. We're playing, our 5th grade group plays in 6th grade, and we play some tough teams, and there's some teams out there that, we struggle with, but it's helping us get better. And so this kid that Crew was guarding is just killing him. We never played against him before. I hadn't gotten any. I didn't have any tips for him yet. Hey, make him go left, or he can't shoot. Like I didn't know, right?
Good luck.
And so, and he's good. This kid is just, and my son's little, right? And so, bigger, thicker guard, just bullying him around the whole game. And so the game is close, and there's like maybe 6 minutes left, and we're down maybe 4 or 6 points. And the kid gets to the rim again, just gives Crew a shoulder. Crew flies off him. He lays in the basket. And so, and they call foul and one. Kid's shooting free throws. Crew walks over to me, hands in face. He's all upset, embarrassed, whatever. I look at him. I said, listen, the next time that kid gets anywhere near the basket, you do not let him score. I said, if you're going to foul him, right? And it wasn't like a take his head off.
No.
And Crew has heard me say that to a million people. So he knows what it means. But he's emotional. He's having a hard day. 2 possessions later, kid catches it, and Crew was in the help. He had to help on another drive, closes out on the catch. Kid rips and gets right around him in like one dribble on the closeout, and Crew just turns around and shoves the kid. And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm screaming on the sideline, and he turns and looks at me and just with the tears, and that walks over the bench, and I'm like, I grab somebody, I get him to sub in, and I pull him to, he's screaming at me. I was like, you told me to foul him. I was like, not like that, And then he sits down, and then the game ends, whatever, and he's still distraught. And my assistant, same kind of thing, comes over. He's like, dude, 10-year-old, literal. He's upset. You basically, this is what you said. I was like, I know. I feel like he knew better. And then we talked about it on the way home. I said, look, I'm not mad now, but I thought you knew what I meant, which wasn't shove somebody in the back. And he basically was like, I'm just doing everything that you tried to tell me to do. And so, like those types of situations, we're not always perfect.
No.
And sometimes we say things as coaches that we think a kid is going to understand one way, and they're a kid, so they don't understand it that way.
I was at Shortridge, and I had a boxer, never played basketball. And this was varsity, and I forgot who we were playing, but the kid's name was Curtis. And we're up, and we say, hey, just foul to wrap him up and kill some time. The guy ended up coming across the court and spear tackling, like laid out and like rolled into the stands, got a technical foul. We ended up losing the game. And he comes back to the same thing. He goes, but you said foul. And he's a boxer, so a foul to him is like, he's used to taking punches in the face.
Yep.
They're like, yeah, but like, you'd have to spear him. He goes, well, I didn't know what you meant. And I was like, okay, yes, you did foul him.
Yep.
You did foul him.
Yep.
I want to shift this to, what do you think needs to be fixed with youth sports? Like, obviously, it's broken, and I feel like we're riding on 4 flat tires, but we don't know how to change the tires, and we're going to keep going down the road with these flat tires. What would you do to fix? I'm talking in Indianapolis right now. What is something that you can see you could change, and why?
That's loaded. Well, first of all, I think sadly, and I'm part of this. I mean, I saw an opportunity to get into youth sports on a business side a long time ago with good intentions, and I think a lot of people had those good intentions. It's a free world. Hey, I want to start a volleyball club. Great, cool. That person's intentions were to help kids and parents and do something in a sport that they love, and I think there are a lot of those people out there. The problem is the money money changes people. And, and it's quick, like my story is I went from being a teacher to being an entrepreneur to owning a business to selling a business to getting into corporate sports, right? So like I worked my way up the ladder, and all of those things equated to more money, bigger salaries, different things. And so that makes it hard for, in my opinion, some of the great people in this business sometimes to recognize what they're doing might not actually be the best for all of you sports. I think the like volleyball, basketball, like baseball, those three particular, the space has just become teams, games. And these club operators have figured out how to control the teams, the games, and the money that is associated with all of them. And again, a lot of those operators are people that I know and I trust, and I think they do a good job. The problem is it's impossible for them to serve the entire market well because it's gotten too big and too out of hand. And then, you look at what's happening at the higher level in these sports, and they're saying, well, the development in the United States has gone downhill, and it's pretty obvious why. That it's just become this kind of race to be on the best team, to play the most games and then the parents to push all that information out on social media. Oh wow. And I just think a lot of it comes back to the parents. Look at me, look at my kid. Instead of this I want to go home with, man, that season was so memorable, right? And I don't hear that enough. Like, I think that's one thing that I like about this school pups deal. And it's funny because when I started Primetime, we were like the anti-pups, right?
Yeah.
But here I am coaching a school team in a community that I'm not a coach, but my kid's in it. And what I've realized is that school experience, it's a one-season thing. We're together from, early fall till the end of the kind of February, early March. And we've got a league to play in. We got a goal to win. We've got, extracurricular activities that we do as a group together. And it feels kind of like what a high school experience is like on a smaller level. Yeah. That's what makes youth sports great. And I think that the club space, it's not about that. It's just about winning and beating this club and beating that club. And they're missing a lot of what we played sports for as kids. It's just gotten away from that space. So to fix it, that's tough, right? I mean, I think every sport probably has its own thing, but I think at the end of the day, like the rec world, and then the rec kids that were really good turning into all-stars, and like that whole thing that I felt like I kind of grew up in is now gone. And part of me almost wonders if it would actually be better for kids when they're younger. I know that when they get older, you have to put the best kids against the best kids.
Yeah.
But we're trying to do it so early that it's really probably, that's one of the driving forces, I think, to ruining a lot of this stuff.
That makes sense. The second to last question I got for you is recommendations. And this is something I struggle with because I struggle to recommend a whole company.
Yep.
Like I asked the parents, like, who's the coach going to be? You got to find out the coach.
Yep.
Because if I sign a team up and I send them to the pups and I see B. Lafferman on there as a coach, I'm like, you're going to that team. Don't ask questions, you go.
Yep.
What do you look for when you give a recommendation, and why do you give that recommendation? What holds you back from a recommendation? Like, talk about how you recommend and why you recommend programs.
Yep. I always tell people, coach, teammates, and who are you playing against, right? Like in basketball, those are three things to look for right away. And then what's your practice, skill development kind of ratio against games? And so, right now, I think in the market, like if a parent came to me, I'd say the same thing as you. I mean, like, you could send a kid to Grand Park Premier. You could send a kid to Unranked Hoops. You could send a kid to Showtime or Primetime or IBA or any of these places. But at the end of the day, they're not, every team in those clubs is not going to be the same. I would say that the administrative kind of organizational component of it, I do think is really important for parents. In today's society, if you've got 3 kids, 2 working parents, it's tough, right? And so to be part of a program or a team that's organized where they're communicating well and you know what to expect, that's probably an added plus. But Coach is always number one. I mean, who are you putting your kid around? And what is that person going to actually teach them anything? Because I think there are actually probably more bad coaches coaching, especially like I mentioned earlier, the younger ages, than there are good ones. So that's a big thing.
Comment. It's funny. So the big thing that I'm at the level where the 3-2 press break is like, or the 3-2 press is like the one that's like, that's a sign of a bad coach, but people do it because it's like the cheat code.
Oh
and
yeah,
like,
cheating for sure.
But did you learn anything?
Yeah, no. I mean, I every program I've ever been a part of, we teach man defense at the first grade level, and I'm sure you're the same way. And I think that a lot of guys who played, who maybe were good players and maybe even had good coaches, didn't pick up how to teach man-to-man defense. It's not that easy.
Yeah.
But it's easy to say find your man, but against anybody that knows how to play offense, that ain't gonna work, right? And so I think it is cheating. It's cheating to win. It's also much easier to stand there in a zone because I don't really know how to teach man. And so, zone, like, this is a big topic in our world. Like, zones is part of basketball. Yeah. Every team I've ever coached, like, we mix in a zone. We'll come out of a timeout in a zone, right? If we just cannot get a stop, we may go zone. But like, man principles and like not being taught to kids is such a disservice for them and for whatever high school coach is going to get them. Because I'm sure the freshman that comes in that knows how to play man defense and how to guard actions and how to communicate versus the ones that don't, those guys play sooner.
Yeah.
And people think it's the kid that's going to make the most shots is going to play sooner, and that is not true.
I will tell this story. I'll tell the story because when I was head coach, I ran exclusively zone at the varsity level.
Yep.
I wish I would have mixed it up more, but I was a first-time head coach. I just say, hey, I got my thing and I'm going to do it. And then halfway through, the zone's not working. It was working. We just weren't boxing out, but we don't want to hear that. So I finally caved a little bit, and so I was teaching the shell drill. And one of the kids comes back and goes, hey, I thought you said we're running man. I'm like, yeah, but then if my man's over there, then why am I over here on help side? And I'm like, nobody's taught you shell drill. I've never seen, this is a senior coach, I've never seen this drill before in my life.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm expecting shell drill just to be like, we automatically know it. So it's just that disservice. It finally caught up to me, and I was like, okay, now I'm angry.
Oh yeah.
Now that all your development is costing me my job right now.
Yep.
Last question, and then we're out of here. You wake up tomorrow, you're the commissioner of a basketball in America. You can make any rule you want. I've had people say 4-point lines. Swishes are worth 4. The post is outlawed. What rule would you make and why?
I'll give you 2.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an NBA rule and I'll give you a youth basketball rule.
Love it.
NBA, I would widen the court. And make it wider.
Okay.
I feel like the older I've gotten, the more NBA I've watched. And even, to be honest with you, like, even at a high-level 4A game, the bodies are just so big now. And, like, it just seems so crowded to me. And I think that, like, it would be more entertaining if there was a little bit more space. I was lucky enough that my employer had tickets on the court, and so I got to sit on the floor for a few Pacer games over the last couple of years. And when you're that close, you really see how much room there is between the sideline and the 3-point line. Like, some of these dudes' feet are bigger than the space.
Yeah.
And so I think the game might be a little bit more fun to watch. I also think creatively coaches would have a lot more fun with things that they could do if it was wider.
That makes sense. Well, real quick, I'm gonna remember your second one because we're gonna come back to it. I hear a lot of kids come in and say, I want to be in the NBA, I want to be in the NBA. Until you see an NBA body, it's a whole nother game. Like, I mean, you have, I'm 6'3", and I tell people all the time, am I tall? And everyone's like, yeah, you're a monster, you're tall. You realize TJ McConnell's taller than me.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm like, yeah, like, I am short in the NBA world, but you got to be a different breed in the NBA.
100%. And even if you go to a Nike EYBL event, I mean, and go sit, because those are in gyms like the Pacers Athletic Center, you can sit right in the front. That will quickly take any parent who's got a dream of their kid going somewhere and make them really understand what it's going to take. And, you've coached them. You coached one against me. I mean, unbelievably talented players who can't play Division I basketball just because physically they're not capable. They got NBA game, but they don't have that type of size and physicality. And that's just, That's just the way athletes are today.
Yeah.
So, I definitely, and that's even for a high school versus like a 1 or a 2A game, there's a lot of great ball in 1A and 2A. The bodies just aren't as big, not as many football players out there. It's just a little bit different, but the talent definitely, and the size, they don't always unfortunately get to go together. If you're small and really talented, there's a place for you to play, but it's probably not the NBA.
No, it's probably Europe or Division II or something. And then your second point.
Yeah, I think in youth basketball, and you hear this a lot, but I would push on it hard, is that we should be playing 3-on-3. And they're like 5-on-5 basketball until probably 4th grade should be like outlawed. And the reason, the rules in these leagues, you can't press. Well, okay, that's fine. But the reality is the kids are not getting better playing 5-on-5 basketball in kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, and 3rd grade. They're not. What happens is the kids that are the most athletic, the fastest kids, the most aggressive kids, whether they have any basketball skill whatsoever, they're always going to win in those battles, because it's just an up and down race, right? And so, and the kids aren't skilled enough or strong enough to pass, catch, read, do all the things that you have to do to actually play the game correctly. But if they were playing 3-on-3, okay, they would develop that stuff significantly faster. The game has got more space, there's more touches, there's more shots. There's nothing worse than, I hear it from parents all the time, they go to their kids' 2nd grade 5-on-5 game, right? 28-minute game, okay? Their kid shoots it 3 times, but they sprinted up and down the floor 100 times. Like that's not basketball. They're not learning anything. And so I would even make a case that you could play short court 3-on-3.
Yeah.
Right? Would be better than watching any 5-on-5 game with kids that young. People talk about the basket height and all these different things. Like, that's fine. That affects shooting, form, and I get all that. But like the game, being able to pass, catch, read, dribble, shoot, like to defend, to get better at that stuff, to me, 3-on-3 is it. And like, if you came to any of my practices with the Carmel team or any of the teams I've ever coached, that's what we spend the majority of our time doing, because I just think that's how you get better.
I love it. Coach, I appreciate you, man. You did awesome. Again, make sure you go to coachlaff.com, check that out, use that resource. I'll be honest with you, not too many people in the coaching world are willing to be vulnerable like him, and I've made it very known that I'm not that vulnerable. The fact that someone's offering you a resource is something that is valuable in this business. And I'm not taking pride on that I'm gatekeeping, but I gatekeep, and I'm willing to admit it, but I am who I am. But the fact that someone's willing to open up their book and help you guys, I really want you guys to take a recommendation of that. Whether it's a team, whether it's a program, whether it's an individual, take advantage of that, because you don't know who knows people, and he knows a lot of people. So again, thank you for listening. If you made it this far on the podcast, make sure you subscribe, make sure you write comments. If you disagree with anything we say, put it in the comments.
Yeah.
I want to hear. I'll get him back on. You're coming back on. You said a lot of good things, and I think we just scratched the tip of the iceberg for this. He said a lot of valuable things. Share this with somebody that you know. Appreciate you making it this far, and we'll see you next week.
Awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.